Now time for the 7 things you'll be talking about today. Number 7.
Somebody got a phone call yesterday and he was very excited. It was a big boy phone call. Having solved all of Birmingham's crime problems and making everyone say, hey, why can't we be more like Birmingham? Now, Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin affirmed his support for President Joe Biden following a conference call with Democratic mayors emphasizing Biden's commitment to his agenda and vision for the nation. Despite Biden's own staffers sounding pretty glum, Woodfin praised Biden's focus on reducing costs for working families, improving healthcare accessibility, and making significant investments in cities like Birmingham. The mayor of the city said he's riding with Biden, but not through certain neighborhoods because they blocked him off. Can't do that in Birmingham. Watch out, guys.
Number 6.
U.S. Representative Barry Moore, Republican out of Enterprise, asked conservative media commentator and Daily Wire owner Ben Shapiro about the impact of organizations like the Global Disinformation Index and NewsGuard were having on conservative media. Those organizations target conservative media with censorship, and they basically say, you're not going to advertise with them, are you? Oh, that'd be terrible. Did you know that they have opinions that we don't like? Shapiro noted that the government works with these organizations, and they help set these standards, and it impacts their business because the government is seen as sort of backing them. He said these standards are purportedly objective in practice, but they rarely are. NewsGuard, for example, has penalized us for being a conservative site when we mention that we are honest about our biases. They say, well, that means you're not objective, unlike other outlets that claim to be objective but are biased towards the left.
Number 5.
It's not every day that I agree with the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, mostly because, their ties to terrorist organizations and whatnot in the past. But a national Muslim civil rights group is actually correct here. The Council on American Islamic Relations urged Alabama officials on Thursday to honor death row inmate Keith Edmund Gavin's request to forego an autopsy after his scheduled execution on July 18th, citing his devout Muslim beliefs against such procedures, which seems like a reasonable request. They don't. Why do we need an autopsy? We're killing the guy. We know exactly what killed him. Us. We did it. Not in my name. No. Yes, in my name, but more often. CARE emphasizes that religious freedom should be respected even for murderers like Gavin, who was sentenced for the death of a 1998 murder of a courier driver, William Clayton Jr., who he shot after he was using the ATM. So, okay, great.
Number 4.
Alabama is blowing up. The state gained over 22,000 net residents and nearly $800 million in adjusted gross income in 2022, surpassing similar southern states. Alabama outperformed states like Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas in net migration and AGI gains, adjusted gross income gains. It was outpaced, however, by South Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida. The state attracted significant migration from high outbound states like California and New York, with Baldwin and Madison counties leading in population growth. No surprise there. The South as a whole saw substantial migration gains, contrasting with huge losses in California and New York, which might be why they're trying to attract illegal immigrants to their communities, because people who live there are like, this sucks, we're out. And they're going, well, we need someone to clean our bathrooms. So yeah, that's not me saying it, that's what they say.
Number 3.
The newly redrawn 2nd Congressional District in Alabama is very much in play, with Republican candidate Caroleene Dobson raising the money needed to win that race. According to the latest filings with the Federal Elections Commission, Dobson has raised over $527,000 in campaign contributions since mid-April, making her one of the top 10 non-incumbent U.S. candidates for Congress on the Republican side. And a lot of you will say, well, I don't too much money. Yeah, that's great. This is how the game is played. So this is good information. Dobson slammed Joe Biden last night, saying, quote, I think the big boy press conference went pretty well. And I'm sure President Biden, Vice President Trump, and Biden's commander-in-chief would agree. It's time for Shamari Figures to break his silence and admit the White House is quickly becoming Weekend at Bernie's. This race has been below the radar. It is going to heat up, and I'm here for it.
Number 2.
The first Democrat United States Senator is now calling for Joe Biden to drop out. The first of many I think we're going to see over the next couple of days. This is Vermont's Senator Peter Welch. He is the first to say it's time for Joe Biden to go. More Democrats have come out before and after Biden's embarrassing but good enough to keep him in press conference. But the momentum continues to grow against him. And I mentioned this before. There's a member of Congress who, on the Democratic side, who is now calling for Joe Biden to resign the presidency. That's a big escalation. But Biden himself says he will drop out if polls show he can't beat former President Donald Trump. The polls show that. But he claimed, using a creepy whisper, "No one say that. No poll says that."
Now, time for the number 1 thing you'll be talking about today.
Speaking of President Joe Biden, he took part in that big boy press conference where he had a list of reporters to call on, hoping to prove he is capable of doing the job he currently holds. Voters have clearly made their voice clear, with 67% of them telling him to go away. They've made their voice heard. I mean, say that they've clearly made their voice clear. Maybe not the right way to say that. I sound like Joe Biden. The president began his press conference, I'm shouting like him too, by confusing Vice President Kamala Harris with President Donald Trump. That was after he confused Zelensky and Putin. Just off to a great start. He mentioned he would follow the advice of the military chief of staff, which he then called his commander-in-chief. He discussed pacing himself and better managing his schedule to address his challenges, which, by the way, that's really what you want to do. I'm having some problems selling people on the idea that I'm able to do my job. The best thing to do is to come out and talk about how you can't do your job. We all know in our workplace that if we have a coworker who sucks at his job, the one thing we want to hear from him is A, how busy he is, and B, how he's got to slow down a little bit in order to get it done. And that's what the President of the United States did. He said, I suck at my job, and everyone's pointing it out. Maybe I should tell people what a great job I'm doing, but then argue that I need to slow down as well. That's what people want to hear. I know it makes me feel better about what's going on in my world. I know that. He also discussed pacing himself and better managing his schedule to address his challenges, which is definitely something you want to hear. You're in over your head. That's yeah. You're going to bring people on board and be like, hey, how you doing? I'm in over my head. Oh, great, awesome. He made incoherent comments about Ukraine, rambled on about how we're going to make sure that rent is kept at a 5% increase. What is that about? Anyone have any idea where that came from? Or are we talking about national rent control? I don't know. Corporate rents for apartments. This is what he said. This is a quote. Corporate rents for apartments and the like, homes are limited to 5%. It doesn't, that means nothing. I don't even know where that came from. Yet there he is. He also said Japan and South Korea have not been playing nice since World War II, which is not remotely true. I mean, it's just nonsense. And everyone will tell you, this is his wheelhouse. So he can't even hit the ball out of the park in his own wheelhouse. He cannot do it. But he's a nice guy, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, incompetent as hell, but a nice guy. That's essentially what we're left with. And nobody wants that. Nobody. But that's where we're at right now. We're at a point where you can weigh in right now. How do you do so? Well, it is always very, very simple. You pick up the phone right now. QC Kinetics free speech phone lines, 866-494-WVNN. There's the scoutpestcontrol.com WVNN hot take text line at 866-494-WVNN. And you can email me.
You've got mail.
Dale at WVNN.com. That's another thing you can do right there. Don't forget 10 with him coming up at the end of the program. You can get in right there. Get your questions in. You got questions. I've got answers. We'll get into all of those. And when we come back, question of the day, one of the greatest questions I think I've ever come up with. Is it the greatest? I guess we're going to find out. Stay tuned.
Get WBNN's Dale Jackson's 7 Things You Should Be Talking About Today right in your email box every morning. Go to yellowhammernews.com and sign up today.